Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. What we're covering in today's session is the comprehensive CMA. So we're going to run through and show you how to create a nice presentation for one of your potential sellers, running a nice comparative market analysis. I'm going to be doing this class on an Innovia demo site, so keep in mind as we go through here today, some of the fields and some of the search displays and parameters may look a little different than your particular MLS, but the core program works exactly the same. So we'll just be seeing a little bit of different data in there than your MLS, but it's the exact same program. So let me go ahead and log in here. This will take me into the home page here, and one of the things we're going to start out with is over here on the right-hand side, the comprehensive CMA. So over here on the right, you'll see the links on the right-hand side of your page. Depending on your MLS, that button may be higher or lower, but it should be over there on the right. There's usually also a link under the search menu. If you go up there, you can usually find a link to the comprehensive CMA from here as well. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this. One of the things we're going to cover today in the comprehensive CMA is not only the the CMA in general, but there are some new enhancements that are being rolled out to this CMA as we speak. So some of you may have already had these rolled out in your MLS. Some of you, they may be coming very shortly. CoreLogic is in the process of rolling these out to all of our customers. So if you don't see these yet today, you will see them very soon. But it'll give you a good preview of some of the changes that are coming to the CMA. Okay. When you get in here, you'll notice I have a couple CMAs that I've already run in here. So this list is basically just a list of subject properties that I had input at some point to run one of these CMAs. To start one of these CMAs, you'll see down at the very bottom there, you won't see this board setup. That's just the login that I'm under. I'm under a higher level login right now. So your first button down there will be the new button. So to start a new one, just click new, and that'll take you to this page. This is one of the minor adjustments they made in the new enhancements. There used to be a separate button for cloning, but that's all located now together under the new button. So when you come in here to create a new one, you'll just choose, do you want to create a new subject property from scratch? And you can choose your property type underneath there. Or do you want to clone an existing listing that's already in the MLS? So this will save you some time. Instead of going in and typing in all the information for a new subject property, if that property has already been listed in the MLS at some point, just click clone, and you can put in either an MLS number or a street number, street address, and click next down there, and then it'll go out and find that property for you, and it'll allow you to copy all the information over to the subject property that you're working with. Okay. Now, depending on your MLS, there may be rules that vary as to what listings you can clone. You may only be able to clone your own or those within your own firm, or you may be able to clone anything. It just depends on the business rules in your particular MLS. Okay. So when you start a new one, you've got a couple choices there. You can either create a new one from scratch, or you can clone an existing listing as your subject property. Okay. I'm going to click back and just go back to the beginning page here. The other thing that I want to point out is when you're anywhere else in Innovia, one of the upgrades that they're making is you're going to be able to start a comprehensive CMA from anywhere now. Instead of, as before, you had to go in and actually go into the comprehensive CMA program to start. Let's say you had run a search, or you were looking on the hot sheet or something like that, and you saw some listings that you wanted to include in a CMA. You could click Use Checked. Okay. And actually, bear with me here, they haven't added it to the hot sheet in the demo site, so let me go out and run a quick little search here. That's one of the things that we'll probably notice throughout the class today. Because this is a demo site, not an actual live Innovia MLS customer, we may see some little quirks here and there depending on what we're looking at. So let me just pick a couple areas here. There we go. And let me check off a property here and go into Use Checked. There we go. So now you'll see there's going to be a new addition to the Use Checked menu. It's going to be called CompCMA. Whereas before, the only CMAs you could run in here were just those quick one-page CMAs where you could just do the price adjustments. Now you can initiate a comprehensive CMA directly from those searches. So you'll choose that option, hit Show Selection, and it'll give you a couple choices. Okay, what is it that you want to do with that listing that you checked off? Do you want to use that as a subject property for a new CMA? So do you just want to pull that in, kind of like the cloning that we were talking about a minute ago? Do you want to use that as a subject property? Or would you rather use the listing or listings that you've checked off as comparables? So you can come in and say, I'd rather add this as a comparable to a new CompCMA. So it'll start you in the process of entering a new comparable or a new subject property, and then it'll include these that you've checked off as comparables when you get to that step. Okay. Or the third option is you can go ahead and add it as a comp to an existing CMA that you've already run. So here's that list we were just looking at a minute ago of CMAs that I had already run. So I could take this listing and import it into my current CMA as a new comparable property that I want to include. Okay. So depending on the selection that you make there, it'll take you to the next logical step. If you're choosing the first option here, it'll take you to the point where you're going to input your it'll take you to the subject property screen where you'll have that subject property already imported. If you're adding it to a new CMA, then it'll take you to the point where you'll input a new subject property. Or if you're adding it to an existing CMA, then it'll jump you in on the page where you're actually choosing your comparables for that subject property. Okay. So a couple nice new integration points there in the regular searches. You can initiate the comprehensive CMA from those search results now. Okay, remember, just go into the Use Checked menu to do that. So I'm going to go in here and click on Comprehensive CMA. I'm going to kind of start back over here. We look down here at the New button. If you've never run one of these before, let me just simulate what it looks like for you to put in a new one. So let me click New. I'll go Create a New Subject Property, and we'll just choose a house as our property type. And then click Next, and that'll take you to the input page. Okay. The input page this is basically the same page you would see if you were putting in a listing, but you'll notice a couple things. You're not going to have to put in as many mandatory fields. So you'll see up here, for example, in this particular MLS, street number, street name, city, zip code, state, and area are all mandatory. Okay. Nothing else down here is actually mandatory to run a CMA, as opposed to when you're putting in a listing, you probably have to fill out a lot more fields there. Okay. So at a minimum, make sure you fill out the mandatory fields on that page. But the next thing I want you to remember is, the more information that you put in here, the better. The easier it's going to be for the system to find comparables. So, at least make sure you put in things like how many bedrooms does it have, how many bathrooms does it have, the square footage, does it have a pool or a garage. Make sure you put in those important things that the system can use as search criteria to find comparable properties. So what is it that it's important about this property that you want to make sure you compare it to other properties when you're running your search? Now I'll save some time here, and I'll just use a comparable or a subject property that we have already entered instead of having you watch me fill out one of these. So I'm just going to click back, and we'll just go back to the first step here, and we'll just use this first one I've got on my list here to save a little time. Okay. You'll also see down here the Activate button. So later on, after you've run one of these CMAs, this Activate button actually allows you to activate this into a listing from here. So if you've input a bunch of data about your subject property already, instead of going into listing maintenance and re-entering all that data, you can come into the CMA program, grab your subject, make sure you click on it over there on the left, and then hit Activate down here at the bottom. And it'll ask you, are you sure you want to activate it to a listing? I'm not going to go ahead and actually activate this one, but it'll take you to the next step where you can go ahead and input any more information about that listing that you need to and save it into an actual listing. Keep in mind that this Activate button also depends on your business rules, so you may or may not have that button there depending on your security level and the business rules in place in your MLS. All right. Couple other things you can do to your subject property. You can upload photos to it. Okay, so if you want to upload a picture to a subject property, just click that. It'll take you to the photo upload page, and then you can browse out and grab those pictures wherever you've got them located. Open them up and then save it. It's just like uploading photos to a listing. You're doing the same thing, except you're uploading it to a CMA subject property. And when you're done, you can come up here and click back to CMA, and that'll take you back to the previous page there. Okay. So you can upload photos. One of the new items then, you can also upload documents now. So this is one of the enhancement items that's coming. You may not have it yet in your particular MLS, but it'll be coming very soon. You're going to be able to take attachments and upload them to your subject property to include in your presentation. So, maybe you've got a lead-based paint disclosure or a seller's disclosure or something like that that you want to upload. You can come in and you can even give them custom names here as well. So, maybe you've got a seller disclosure. And then browse out, find that document wherever you've got it located. Okay. Boom. Open it up and then upload it. and then that will be it will be available for you to attach to your presentation when you get to that final point. Okay. We'll talk about that in a little bit when we get to the last step of the CMA. I'll show you where you can enable and disable those particular documents for your presentation. You may be wondering, well, what about attachments for the comparables? And the answer is, it'll actually, if you pull in a comparable that has documents attached to it, you can actually use those documents in your presentation as well, as long as they're public documents and not private documents. Some of your MLSs have a difference between a private and a public document, so it'll allow you to pull those public documents in as well and share those in your presentation. Same thing for your subject property. If you clone the subject property, remember earlier we were looking at the new button here, if you clone a subject property in and it has documents already attached to it, public versions of those documents, then you'll be able to use those in your presentation as well. Okay. So that's a new item there, and we'll touch back on that again when we get to the final step of the CMA. So the first kind of major step here is to make sure you got your subject property in, make sure you've uploaded any pictures that you want to it, put any documents on it that you want, and then when you're ready you can go to the next step. So just make sure you've got your subject selected, click Next down there, and that'll take you to step 2 of the CMA. Okay. Step 2 of the CMA, the same options that you've always had in here. This will allow you to search for comparable properties. So basically what you're doing is you're telling the system how you want to search for comps. Okay? And there's a couple fields here. You've got a selected field list and an available fields list. And when you first get in here, it may look something like this. You may not have any fields over here. Again, I had already run the CMA once, so let me kind of reset this. So what you're going to see is a list of all these available fields that you can choose as search criteria. So when the system goes out and it looks for comparables, what fields do you actually want it to use to come up with comps? Well, I want it to look in the same area, so I'm going to go ahead and click Add and move area over there in my list. Okay. I also want it to look for a comparable number of bedrooms, so I'm going to add bedrooms over there. Okay. I'd also like to make sure it has a comparable number of bathrooms and that the square footage is similar. Okay. There may be other items in this list that you want to add over there. I'll keep it at that for now. One of the questions we get a lot at this point is, where does this list come from? Maybe I want to search by pool or garage or crown molding or whatever. Well, where do these fields come from? These fields, this list is dynamically built based on what you put in for your subject property. Okay? So when you filled out that subject property input form, if you didn't tell the system if the subject has a pool or if it has a 2-car garage, then you're not going to be able to use that as search criteria in the second step, because how's it going to know what to compare it to? If it doesn't know that your subject property has a pool, then it's not going to be able to go out and find subject or comparables that also have pools, because it doesn't know that yours has a pool. So just keep that in mind. If you don't see something in this list, it's because you didn't enter that data in for the subject property. Okay. So go ahead and add those fields over here. This is also a prioritized list. Okay. And you'll see that up here at the top. Items at the top of the selected fields list carry more importance when searching for comparable properties. So when it runs this search, it's going to start at the top and it's going to say, all right, the most important thing is that I find comparables in the same area. Then I'm going to look at the number of bedrooms in that area. Then I'm going to look at the number of bathrooms in that subset of area and bedrooms. The further something is down on the list, then the more lenient it's going to be. So it may pull up properties with one more or one less bedrooms, or 2 more or 2 less bathrooms, or square footage range will be a little more lenient because it's lower down the list. So and when we get to the next step, I'll show you how you can kind of get an idea of what matches for your subject property. Okay. And then over here to the right, you can choose what statuses you want to pull up for comparables. How far back do you want to search for comparables for closed or expired listings? There's also a new feature in here, so you can search a radius. Okay. As long as the system can find your subject property on the map, as long as you put in a valid address, there's going to be an option down here now where you can search a radius. So, maybe instead of searching in an area, I want to take that out, remove that, and I just want to search within, 2-mile radius of my subject property. Okay. So there's another way that you can kind of work that search instead of, choosing fields like subdivision and area. If you just want to do a distance search, then you can do that as well. Okay. I'm going to keep my area field over there. The other thing then that you can do is you can also do manual searches, and this has always been a part of the CMA. You may not have been aware that it was there, but instead of using all these fields up here, you may want to just go out and do your own manual search. Okay. Or you may already have MLS numbers that you know of that you want to include. So you can just go ahead and type those in here, separate them by a comma, and that will include those in your list of comparables. Okay. But maybe you just want to, do your own manual search. You don't want to worry about all these fields up here in the order that you're putting them in and things like that. You can just come down and click manual search. It'll drop you out to a search page, and then you can go ahead and do whatever search you want to do. Okay. You're looking for, sold listings in these areas and a price range or a time frame or whatever. Okay, so you've got all those all the search fields at your disposal there that you can use. Let me just type something in here. Here's a little tip for you all. If you didn't know, you can use the T- search on these date range fields. So instead of putting in a low and a high date, you can put in T- 365, which would be 1 year, or T- 730, which would be roughly 2 years or so. Let me see if I get any data for that. We don't have a whole lot of comparable data in the demo site, so let me just run a couple searches. This will be good enough. So let's just say, for the sake of example, that this property was one that we wanted to include in our CMA. So we did the manual search. We came up with a comparable. We check it off. We go to Use Checked. And what it does is it actually brings us back into the CMA. So it pulls that comparable in, loads it up on the screen here, and brings us back to the CMA page. Now at this point, if you wanted to continue on, if this was the only comparable you were going to use, you could just click Next. But probably we're going to want to do a little more searching here and see if we can find some more comparables. So let me click the back button here. And this is a nice little feature. It'll take that MLS number that you went out and found, and it'll plug it into this little box here. So in this case, it's going to go ahead and do a search up here with these fields that we selected, but it's also going to include this MLS number that we went out and found on our own through the manual search. So you can see here how you can run these searches a couple different ways. You can have the system do it using some specific fields. You can also use the manual search to go out and do your own search instead. Okay. Now if you do that, if you do what we do, notice down here at the bottom there's a little checkbox that says use previous comparable selections instead. This allows you to, when you're running a CMA, if you come back later, it'll pull up the same selections, the same comparables that you had run before. Now, because we already did that manual search and we're coming back and we want it to also do this search, then you're going to want to uncheck that little box. Okay. Otherwise, it's just going to pull up that previous selected comparable, just that one. So I'm going to uncheck that. That way, it's going to do a hybrid search here. It's going to do this search and this search to pull up our comparables. So there we go. It loads up a pretty good list there of comparables that it found based on those fields that we told it to search by. You'll see over here on the third column there, the rank. It's going to give each comparable a number to rank it to tell you how close of a match that subject or that comparable is to your subject property. Okay. So you'll see here there's some 96s, there's an 86, there's some 75s. What does this mean? Basically, it means the higher the number, the better of a match it is. And it's basing that off of the fields that you told it to use in the last step. So in the last step, we said, look in the same area, look for the same number of bedrooms and bathrooms, and look for the same square footage. So these 96s here, these are all in the same area. They're both 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom homes, and the square footage isn't exact, but it's close. So that's why we're getting a 96 out of 100. Okay. Down here, this 86, this is probably in the same area. It's got a comparable number of bedrooms, but it's got one more bathroom. So it's a little lower down on the ranking column because the bathrooms don't match up exactly. Okay. These down here that are 75s, probably in the same area, but the square footage is a little further off. So you'll see some different square footage numbers there from our subject. So there you can kind of get an idea of how it ranks those. You can come in then at this point and select any comparables that you want to include. There's a pretty good list here that I can scroll down and view. Okay. And then you can go to the next step and use those as your comparable properties. Okay. So I'll just grab a few of these just for the sake of demonstration, but you can select as many as you need to there. One of the new additions to this as well is there's also a map down here as well. So one of the new enhancements is when you pull up your comparable list, you're going to be able to, if you'd like, to show a map up there at the top of where all those comparables are located. Okay. So before, you just had to kind of look at the address. Now it'll actually show you, okay, here's my subject property. Here's the 8th one on the list. Here's the 6th one on the list. So it actually numbers these so you can kind of match them up down below to these items on the list here. Okay. And you can also just click on them. So you just click on the little hover window there, and it'll give you the address info for that particular listing that you're clicking on. Okay. So that's a nice new addition to the comparable selection page. So instead of just seeing the list, you'll also get a map up there at the top. And you can hide or show that map in the lower right-hand corner there. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the next step. And that's going to take me to the last page of the CMA. Okay. In the last step of the CMA, basically what you're doing is you're selecting what components you want to include in your presentation. Okay. So first we put in our subject property, then we ran a search for comparables, and we pulled up the list and the map, and we chose the comparables that we wanted to include. And then on the last step here, we're going to choose what sections do we actually want to print out when we create this new presentation. Okay. One thing you'll notice is there's some new displays that are available. So one of the enhancements that's coming is, up until this point you had a subject property flyer which would show the main photo of the property, but it didn't show any additional photos. It actually showed a couple other thumbnail images, but they were kind of small. So now you can actually put in the entire subject photo gallery. So if you've uploaded 24 photos or so for that subject property, then you can include all those photos in the presentation. Same thing with all the comparables. So if you want to load up all the photos for all the comparables instead of just the first couple, then you can go ahead and load those up and pull up the photo gallery for each one of those. Okay. You can also now include the map. So there wasn't a map in there before. Now there's a map display which is going to show you where all your comparables are located. So you can add that in and put that wherever you need to in the list there. So as you see me, I can move these up or down using the buttons over here. There's also an edit button, so you can edit each of these components as you go through here. Okay. So let's just kind of walk down the list and let's take a look at what you can do with these CMA components. So I'm going to click on the cover sheet and I'm going to hit edit, and that's going to take me into this page here. You can edit the information that's on the cover sheet, so if you want to change any of that, the client's name or the address or the property location. There's a couple different templates that you can choose from. There's a standard template, there's one with your photo, and there's one with the property photo. If you want to include as well, you can choose that. And then just click next, and that'll save your preference and bring you back out to that finishing page. So I'm just going to kind of run down the list here quick and show you some of the different things you can do with these components. The cover letter, for example, that'll take you in. Everybody will have a standard cover letter to start with. So it'll be the same. You can edit it. Just come in and change whatever you need to change. Make sure if you want to save that for all your future presentations that you check the little box there. Now, one of the things that I'm going to show you here in a few minutes is another new enhancement. We used to get the question a lot, well, can I import my own cover letter? I've already got one typed up. I've already got it in PDF format. Can I just import it? And the answer now is yes. So you'll be able to go ahead and upload any of those additional documents that you have. So if you've got an external document that you want to include in your presentation, you'll have that ability. Okay. So let me save this, and let me show you where that is. Down here at the very bottom, you'll see this Upload Component button. So you click that, and that'll take you to a page where you just browse out. Okay. Find the document wherever you've saved it. So maybe I've got my own cover letter here. So I'll go ahead and open that up in a PDF format. It'll give me a little preview over there on the right, and then I can just save it. Now once you save that, that's just going to add it to the list as another option with whatever title you gave it, so you can come in and use that instead of the components that are already in there. So it doesn't have to be a cover letter. It could be anything. Any document that you have that you want to upload to the CMA presentation. As long as it's a PDF file, you go ahead and upload it into the presentation. So nice new enhancement coming there for the uploading new components. A lot of these other ones here, you don't really need to edit. The table of contents, just put it wherever you want to put it, and it'll have everything that comes after it in the list listed on that table of contents. The flyer and the photo gallery, those are going to build themselves based on the data and the photos that you uploaded. The CMA summary is also going to build itself. It's just going to give you some nice little stats on each comparable property that you included, as well as your subject, and we'll take a look at that when we pull up the finished presentation. The map display, that'll just build automatically based on where your comparables are at, so it'll plot all those comparables out on a map for you, so no editing that you really need to do there. The graphical analysis, same thing. It'll include a nice little chart with some stats on it, so you can go ahead and present some statistical information on your comparables, but again, no editing necessary. So a lot of these, this is a pretty good long list. You don't have to edit each one of these. There's only a handful of these that you have to edit for each one of your CMAs. Comparables, again, it'll just import those and it'll bring those in. You can do one of two things. You can include an entire flyer for each one of your comparables, or you can do a 3-up version of it, which would give you kind of a shorter, more condensed display, and you can fit 3 to a page. So you probably wouldn't want to include both of those, but I'll leave them in there in my demonstration here just so we can take a look at each one. The price adjustments. This is where you can really get detailed with your CMA. So you'll see down here it's coming up with a price of $266.6. So if I want to come in and I want to make any adjustments to my comparables or anything like that, so you'll come in here and you'll see kind of this side-by-side view. There's one of those little quirks I was talking about with the demo site. For some reason those photos don't show up, but you won't see the X's there. You'll see the photos at the top. So basically you get a little side-by-side view of your subject and your comparables with some basic stats on each. And then down below you get some fields where you can make some adjustments. Okay. Now depending on your MLS and depending on the business rules in your MLS, you may have some factors that are already filled out here. So the value of a bathroom or the value of a bedroom may already be input there. What I want you to understand is when you run one of these, it's completely up to you. Anytime you see these yellow fields, these are editable fields. So you can change whatever you want to change in here. Okay. If it doesn't make sense to you that the value of a bedroom on that side of town in that subdivision is only $1,200 and you need to adjust it to something higher, just go ahead and highlight it and change the factor. Okay. Your particular MLS may not have anything in there. It may just be completely blank, so it may be up to you to input whatever value you want to make an adjustment. Appreciation, for example, this is a yearly factor. So right now I've got 4% in there. So what it's doing is it's appreciating 4% yearly since that property was sold. So in this case, this property was sold over 1,000 days ago. This one was sold 900, and this one was sold 924. We've got a little bit of older data in this demo site, but you'll see here at a yearly factor of 4%, it calculates on a prorated daily value how much that property has appreciated since the sale of the property based on that appreciation factor. Okay, so it's a yearly percent, but it's prorated daily, and it comes up with that appreciation adjustment for you. Okay. And then any of these other things that you want to adjust, you can come in here and make a calculation for it, and it'll automatically adjust over there on the right-hand side the calculation that it needs to, plus or minus. Some of those fields then may just be down here, more subjective fields that don't actually have numbers to calculate. They'll be down here in a separate section, and if you need to, you can go ahead and make any adjustments out there to the right. Now, which brings up a question here, why can't I make any adjustments in these fields? Why are these fields grayed out? If your subject property and all your comparables match, then there's no adjustment that really needs to be made. So those fields will not be editable if those fields all match. If this was in a different area than this one, then you'd be able to come out here and make any of these adjustments. Okay. The other thing that you can do down at the bottom is you can actually do manual adjustments. So if there's something that you want to add in here to this that's not actually a field that you can load up, you can come down here and do a manual adjustment and add it in there. Before I show you that, let me also show you down in the lower left corner, you can add remove any field that you want. So if there's a field in the database that you want to add to this, just hit add remove fields. And that's going to take you into the page where you can go ahead and add or remove any of those documents. Bear with me here. I think my browser froze up. Sometimes it happens with this webinar program. Hopefully everyone isn't froze up on your end. Give me just a minute here. I think the webinar froze everything here. Let me close this. Sorry about that. Let me try to get logged back in here real quick. This is actually, we'll bring up a nice little point here. One of the nice things about CMA, if you've never noticed, is it actually saves everything that you're doing as you go through it. So each time you click a next button down there in any of these pages, it'll save that information. Let me try that one more time here. I'll go down to the bottom and we'll add remove fields. There we go. So when you add and remove these fields, it'll give you an entire list here of fields that are available. So if you want to, put that this property has a boat dock, or any of these other fields, this is the entire list of fields in the database. You can come in and add that to the adjustment column there, and it'll include that as a field. So boom, and then hit next, and that'll bring you back out, and now you'll be able to make an adjustment by that particular field on that page there. Okay. If you want to add in your own manual adjustments, then that's down here at the bottom. You click Manual Adjustments, and it'll give you a kind of form to fill out here. So let's just do pool. I know pool is probably a field in there, but let's just do it for the sake of demonstration. So I'm going to add pool in here, and then I'm going to come down here and say, what's the value of this? Well, my subject property has an in-ground. This comparable does not have a pool, neither does this one, but this one does have an in-ground pool. Okay. So in order to do these adjustments, in this case, my subject has the in-ground pool, this one does not, so I'm going to need to add the value of the pool to this one, so I'll do a positive value there. Okay. If it were reversed, if these had pools and this one did not, then I would need to do a negative adjustment to subtract the value of the pool. Okay. So then I'll save the changes, return to the worksheet, and now you can see down here, there's my pool. My subject has an in-ground. This one does not, so I'm adding 25,000. This one does not either, so I'm adding 25,000 to the adjustment. Okay. So you can get really detailed in here with your CMA. Let me go ahead and click Next, and that'll bring us back out to our final page here. So again, we changed our price here. We did a little adjusting in there. Now our price is $283.3. Now there's a couple things you can do with this. You'll notice below the price adjusted comparables there's a recommended price page. So you can come in and you can edit that price if you'd like. So maybe I want to round that off, or maybe I want to display it as a range of a certain percentage. Maybe I want to make this 280. This is an option that you've always had in the CMA, and you can change all the text on this page if you'd like. But another thing I want to show you is they actually made this a little easier to get to now. So let me save this. You can actually do this right out here on the finished page here as well. So they brought that out to the front of the display here. So instead of going in and editing that recommended price there, you could actually come over here and say, well, I'm going to override this price. I'm going to make it 280, and I want to display it as a range plus or minus of 3%. And you'll see a couple things will happen here. It'll go ahead and give you right down below there the calculation, the range that you came up with based on that overrided price. But it'll also still show you the calculated price over here. Okay? So you can kind of get an idea of the difference between what the system calculated, the range that it's coming up with, and then your overrided range that you came up with. So this, if you do this override option, this is what's actually going to show on the presentation. So this is what will be included in your estimated proceeds worksheet. This is what will show in your recommended price page. This is what will show as the price to your CMA. Okay? So you've got a couple options there to override that price. There's a couple other things. I'm going to come back here in a few minutes and talk about a couple other enhancements. There's another enhancement to the price adjusted sheet, but I don't want to confuse you with that quite yet. So let me come back to that here in a few minutes. So that's a new item down there, the ability to override that price and kind of see that side by side with your calculated price. Your seller's estimated proceeds worksheet, this is a page where you can go in and work out what the seller stands to profit at that price. So there's that 280 that I manually overrided. There's that sale price. So then I can put in the mortgage, any other encumbrances, closing costs, all that good stuff, and it'll calculate for me down here at the bottom the estimated proceeds for the seller. Now you can edit this as well. So you'll see down here at the bottom the edit text page. So you can come in and you can take out any of these closing costs that you don't want to include. You can add other ones in if you need to. So you click New, and then it'll put a new item over there, and you can type in whatever you want it to be. There's some corrective work that needs to be done. There's some help text there where we can put in a little more information. You can do it as a percentage of the overall price, or you can prorate it if it's like a tax value or something like that. It'll put a little asterisk next to it to let them know that it's a prorated value. And you can also put a default value in there as well. So bottom line, not to get terribly into detail here, but you can come in and you can edit this page as much as you want. So if you want to take out any of those closing costs or add other ones in there, you have full control over this closing cost worksheet. Okay? And there's some other things you can turn on or off, the percentage column. You can shade every other line if you'd like, and you can put a little disclaimer, a signature area down at the bottom. Okay. And you can also change the font size there if you'd like. And when you're done, just click Next. There's also a reset option there too, so you can reset that back to the default settings. Okay. And then kind of finishing up with our list here, the last few, the marketing plan, the testimonials, and the resume, these all pretty much work the same. You just get some fields here that you can fill out, like a header and then a details section. So here's my marketing plan. Looks like there's a pretty quick, pretty short marketing plan in there. But you've got many, many fields here that you can fill out if you need to. I think they increased the number of these fields up to 20 now, and they also corrected a bug with the with how the form paginated when you generated it. A lot of times it would just cut off what, if you input too much data in there down at the bottom, it would just cut off at a certain point and you wouldn't get any more information. Now it'll actually spill over into a second page and it won't overlap down at the bottom of the page. So if any of you've seen that in the past, that was a little bug that they cleared up with any of these sections here, the marketing plan, the testimonials, or the resume. So you just click Edit. You can also change the font size on those, which is nice as well now too. Okay, anywhere from 8 to 14. Okay. All right, if you remember earlier, we talked about when we put our subject property in, we had attached some documents to it, things like the lead-based paint disclosure, the seller's disclosure, things like that. When you get to this final point, you're not going to see those attachments in the list automatically, but you'll see down here at the bottom there's an attachments link. So if you click on that, that's going to show you a list here of your subject property as well as any other comparables that may have documents that are available to attach. So in this case, none of the comparables that I pulled up actually had any documents attached to them, but this subject property has those two that we loaded up earlier. So I could come in and I could check those off and then click Save, and it's going to take those documents and it's going to add those into my CMA presentation so that I can use those in my finished printout. So you'll see if I scroll down there to the bottom, there's my lead-based paint disclosure, there's my seller's disclosure. And you'll also notice it'll put the address after it to let you know which one it's referring to. In case you added a couple of different seller's disclosures in there for a couple different properties, you'll get the address out there next to them as well. Okay. And again, if you want to remove any of this stuff, just click here and remove it, and it'll take it out of the list for you. Okay. So that's your attachments list. That goes back to that first point we were talking about where you can upload any documents that you'd like to attach to that property. One of the other things that's changed, which is nice, the preferences here. Before, there was a preferences button before, but all you could do was really just change the color of your CMA. There was just a primary color and a secondary color that you can change. There's all kinds of new preferences in here now. So you can go in here for each document or for each component in your CMA. You can come in and individually change any of this information you see over here on the right. You can change the title of the page. You can add a border to the top and the bottom or a rectangle around the whole thing. You can change the label colors, the data, the agent info, or the shading. So any of that information you can come in, maybe I want to make that shading a little darker. Okay, you can come in and do that. Okay, so it gives you a little color swatch to pop up there. You can choose whether or not you want the agent footer to be included, which has your contact information at the bottom. And there's also an option here, if you make a change, you can come in and apply that change to all displays at one time. So you don't have to come in here and select each one and apply those changes. There's also an option over here where you can include a background image. So you'll see things like little banners here where you can put, kind of it's almost like a stationery. So if you want to do kind of a stationery option there. There's a couple in here already, but you can actually browse out and upload your own. Maybe you have a letterhead banner that has your logo on it or something like that, and you want to include that in CMA. You can do that. Go ahead and browse out, open it up, it'll import it in here to the list, and then just pick it from the list, and it'll include that as an option in your, kind of a stationary option for your presentation. Okay. If you've got something like this, you'll see you could put something, if it was just a banner you wanted to put at the top, you could give it a top position, a bottom position, you could center it, or you could repeat it. So in this case, I'm going to get a kind of a whole, a whole stationary. It's going to repeat this shading all the way across the page for me. And again, make sure if you want to apply that to all displays, you click the button over there on the right. At any point, you can restore the defaults if you'd like. But bottom line, you can kind of play around with this when you get in there. There's a lot more that you can do in there now as far as changing colors and shading and labels and putting background images and banner, headers and things like that. And when you're done, just click Save there. So when you're ready, come down here to the bottom. They changed the terminology here. This used to say next, but there was really no next step. It just built the CMA, so that now says build it. So you click build it, boom, it goes out and creates the PDF file. So it'll open it up in a new window here. Okay, so you see I applied that little stationary item in there. One minor detail that they changed as well was the stock image that loaded up. There was a pretty ugly stock image in there before, so if you didn't actually use the property photo that you've uploaded, if you just use the stock image that's there, that's changed a little bit, a little more modern of an image there. So let's just kind of scroll down through here. You'll see there's our cover letter. Okay, all of the components will be branded with your photo, your contact information, your firm logo. This happens to be the logo that's uploaded for my firm at the moment, so that'll be your logo down there in the upper right-hand corner. Okay. Here was that cover letter. Again, this is just a sample, so I didn't actually have a cover letter written, but you can see how you can integrate any other external document there. That was the one that I uploaded myself. Okay. Table of contents. Subject property flyer with any photos and information that you uploaded. Subject photo gallery, so that's one of the new displays. There's that CMA summary page, so it'll give you a quick little outline of some stats on all your comparables. If you use multiple statuses, so if you have solds and actives and pendings in here, it'll go ahead and split those out for you as well. There's the new map display, so it'll go ahead and show you the comparables and load them up on a map for you to display in your CMA. There's the price-adjusted comparable graph that you can include as well, the graphical analysis, and it just builds automatically based on the stats from your comparables. And then your comparable properties, again, you can do a full flyer for each one, or you can include the pictures if you'd like, okay, for each one. You can do a 3-up version, so if you want to do a shorter version with just the main photo and some basic details on each one, that's fine too. There's the price-adjusted comparable sheet, so it'll go ahead and display for you any adjustments that you made. Okay, there's that kind of side-by-side view. Our price recommendation page that we came up with, remember we rounded that price off and then when we displayed it as a range of 3%. Our estimated proceeds worksheet. Okay, again, remember we shaded every other line. We put a little disclaimer signature area down there at the bottom. There's my really short marketing plan, my couple testimonials, and my really short resume as well. Hopefully you got a little more information to put in on your version. So that's just kind of a quick look here. At this point, obviously you can email it out. Just come over here to the left, put in an email address. They did make a change to this as well. If you have prospects in your prospect manager, those email addresses are already going to be included in here as well. You may be asking, why would I run a CMA for a prospect? But some of you may use this for buyers as well. You may create a nice little presentation for a buyer instead of a seller. So if you do so, you'll easily be able to email it to your prospects that are already in your prospect manager because their names will show up in this list here up at the top. Okay. And when you're done, just close out there, and that will take you back to the finished page or to the final page. Okay. Now there's some other enhancements. That's kind of the gist of running through a CMA. I want to kind of revisit a couple of these enhancements. So what I'm going to do is come down here and go back to Start Over, and that's going to bring me back to the beginning page of the CMA. One of the things you'll notice throughout the CMA now is the grid has changed a little bit here, the one-liner format. Of course, you can sort any of these columns by clicking on the little arrows up here at the top, but you can also customize this grid now. So if you want to take some fields out or add some other fields in here, on any page that you see a grid, whether it's the starting page or in a couple steps later when you're choosing the comparables, if you want to edit any of these one-liners here, just come up in the lower right corner, and first of all, you'll see a little print button up here, so you can now print this list. It used to be a little harder to print that, but now you can print that list out if you need to. And you'll see this little wrench where it says Edit Display. This is similar to the custom display builder when you go into a regular search, but you can come in here, and here's all the selected fields that you have in that list. And if there's anything that you want to add, just come over here on the right and find it, and then load it up. So if I want to put city in the list, go ahead and add that over there, and then I can take city and move it up to where I want it to be in the list. Okay. There's some new fields that are available here as well, and you'll see them under the CMA header there: CMA archive, CMA emailed, CMA last built, CMA modified, and CMA price. Let me go ahead and add those over there, okay, and then we'll save it. So this is going to show you a couple things. First of all, whatever the last price is that you came up with on your CMA, so you can quickly get a glance at that for those CMAs that you've already run. The last time that you modified any of your CMAs. The last time that you actually built it, so when you got to that last step and you actually built the CMA, it'll record that date as well. If you've emailed it out to anyone, it'll record the last time you emailed it. And then you'll see this little CMA archive button here. So this is a nice new option where you'll be able to pull up the last run CMA. So the last time that you built it, it'll archive that PDF for you, and you can pull it up right from there. So without having to go through each step of the CMA, it'll go ahead and load that up in a new window there for you. In a PDF file. Before, you'd have to come down here and you'd have to click next, 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 and go through all 4 or 5 steps again to go ahead and pull up that finished PDF. Now you can do it right there from the opening page. It'll save you a lot of time in pulling up that CMA. It's only going to be the last one. So if you've run this a couple times, whatever the settings were and whatever the data was the last time you ran it, the last time you generated that PDF, that's what it's going to pull up in that archive. Okay. So again, to get to that information, this stuff is not going to be loaded up by default, so if you want to use some of these new fields here, you'll need to make sure to come up here in the upper right hand corner and click that little wrench up there and then add in those fields to the one-liner. Okay. And again, you can do that at any point. You can do that on the page where you choose your comparables as well. So if you want to take some of these fields and move them around or edit them, just come up there and click the edit display button and move those fields up or down, or add or remove those fields. You can also reset them back to the kind of factory settings if you'd like as well. Okay. So that's another change coming with the enhancements here. And bear with me, I just want to make sure we cover everything, so I'm just checking a little list here. One of the other items then, let me back up a step here. And I'm going to choose to pull in some active comparables as well as some solds. Okay, so let me run this search. The CMA that I ran a few minutes ago, all I had were sold properties. I didn't have any actives in there. So let me pull in some actives, and let me include a couple solds in there too. We'll just do, how about just 2 of each just for demonstration. So let me come down here and click Next. And you're going to see there's a new option that pops up here now. Earlier we were talking about the ability to override the price down here. If you run a CMA and you include more than one status, there used to be logic that was built in, and it did this for you automatically. Basically, the way the logic used to work was when you did your price adjustments, if you had actives and solds together, it would only use the solds to come up with the actual recommended price. And it would tell you that down here at the bottom underneath the calculated price. It would tell you what it was using, whether it was just the sold for the closed comparables or for all the comparables. But now you have the choice. So it'll default to only use the solds, but if you want it to average across all of your comparables, so if you want it to use the actives and the solds to come up with the price, then you can change that little toggle there, and it'll include just the actives and just the, or it'll include all the comparables, active, solds, pendings, expireds, whatever you used to come up with that calculation. So that's a new item there that's been included. It gives you the ability to control, whether you want that to be calculated just on the solds or across all the statuses. And again, with that, let me go back here and load up a couple just actives. Okay, maybe you're just doing, maybe there's no solds in that area, and the only comparables you can find are currently on the market. Okay. So what it will do is it will come in here, and if you're just using actives, there's an option in here to choose whether or not you want to use the sell to list ratio in that area over the last 180 days to calculate a price. Now in the demo site we're not getting one because there aren't any sales happening in this demo site, but it'll show you over the last 180 days what the sell to list ratio is for that property type in the MLS. And then you can choose whether or not you want to use that to come up with the price of your comparables, or if you want to ignore it and just use the active prices to come up with the current list prices, you can use that as well to come up with your price. Okay. So again, like I said, it's working a little quirky here in the demo site because we don't have a whole lot of data to pull from unless we have any data to pull from the last 180 days. So we're not getting any information there. But it'll go ahead and use an algorithm to calculate that in your MLS. It uses the property type that you're working with as well as the last 180 days of sales to come up with kind of a general sell to list ratio. So you can kind of include that in your calculation if you'd like. So a couple different calculation tools there that you can now edit. They used to be built in and you didn't have a whole lot of control over them, but now you do. You can change the manual override there. You can do a display. You can also change how it calculates that price there. Okay. All right, that I believe is going to do it. Let me just kind of check here and make sure I didn't miss anything, but I think that covers everything. So I appreciate your time. I hope you learned something. If you've never run one of these CMAs, it's a really valuable tool. Again, one of the questions we get at the end of class is, how did you get to this? Good question. Back on the home page here, the comprehensive CMA is over here on the right-hand side. Okay. So you initiate one there. But again, one of the new enhancements is through any of your searches now, if you go into the Use Checked button, you can initiate a comprehensive CMA from there as well. Okay. Well, that's going to conclude our webinar for the day. I appreciate your time. Thank you for attending. I hope you learned something, and have a great day.